Hey, Watch Curtis Coders. This is episode 6. Oh, 6 in general. And I wanted to talk a little bit about bootstrapping. The last video, episode 5, we talked about app economics. And this video, I just wanted to talk briefly on, okay, so let's say you've worked out the economics. Where does the cash come from? Should you go and try to raise a funding round from your friends and family, or should you try to bootstrap it? Let me tell you all about both of those in just a moment. This is Watch Curtis Code, episode 6. All right, welcome once again to Watch Curtis Code, episode 6. This is just a microphone that I'm using so that you guys can hear the vocal stylings of what I got going on here. And besides, I've had these microphones for a while, but I realize I usually stand during the time I give the podcast. So I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm going to use this hand to kind of gesture and use my expressions as usual. So this episode, of course, is about the two different types of funding. One is bootstrapping, and the other is raising a friends and family round. So let's talk about both of those in just perspective, okay? So first of all, bootstrapping, what is that? That is essentially where you are working stiff, like myself, and you go to a job, you work, you get the paycheck, and then you say, I'm going to put a portion of this, after all my bills are paid or all the things are taken care of, I'm going to go ahead and put this into my new venture. And you can use that essentially as seed money or startup money just to get you going. Sometimes you may see this thing on Shark Tank where the judges will say, well, how much money do you have invested in the business? And some people are like, I have over $400,000 invested. And you're wondering, where in the world did they get this money? Well, part of that is probably bootstrap. They've worked for it in some way. Maybe they've sold or gotten a company acquired, or maybe they have another side business, or they own their own business, and they take money out of that and put it into the new venture. So that's bootstrapping in a typical sense. Now, there's different variations on that, but essentially you're putting your own money up for the venture that you're starting. Now, let's talk about a friends and family round. What is that? Well, you can think of it as, and most of you have heard of venture capital, where you go up Sand Hill Road here in Palo Alto, and you essentially go with your hat in your hand, and you're talking to VCs, you're talking to limited and general partners, and you're trying to convince them or persuade them based on the look and feel of your company or product to invest in your company. Well, the same thing applies in raising a friends and family round, with the exception is you're not talking to VCs, you're talking to your friends and your family. Now, a word of caution, okay, when we're talking about friends and family, many folks think that, okay, because you're my family, you should just invest in what I have going on. But that's not always. It's not always the route that's taken, just because oftentimes when financial dealings are involved, many a family has fallen out. And depending on the dynamic of your family, that capital can be used to enrich your family, or even to destroy it if your company fails. So before you get into the friends and family round, you're asking mom and dad, or close relatives, or even close friends to invest in the company. Make sure that they know that there is a chance for failure. I forget what the statistic is. It's maybe 9 out of 10 new businesses fail. I'm not sure what the statistic is for startups or building apps, but it's pretty high, because you'd find that there's a lot of apps that are here today and gone tomorrow. So just keep that in mind as you proceed. So let me talk in detail about how to get both of those things, a bootstrapping round and also a friends and family round. Well, let's explain bootstrap a little bit. Now that you know exactly what that is, I'm going to tell you how to do so, but I want you to exercise caution when you're doing a bootstrap round, because many people have the erroneous thought that you should just put all your money into your venture, but that's the equivalent of just putting all your investment money, like stocks, bonds, and things like that, into one particular vehicle. It's something that you should keep in perspective, but you should have a balance of understanding the risk involved, right? More importantly, you should really be thinking about your family, their needs, and how you're going to accomplish these things as you put more money into the business and as you grow the business. Because if you think about it, the reason why we do what we do isn't just so that we can have a business or we can come in at 11 a.m. It's to actually help our families to grow and to thrive. So if you lose perspective of that, it's really easy to become imbalanced, meaning that you're just doing it to do it, or you're doing it to keep up with what you think the startup life is, or what you think things are like here in Silicon Valley. Now, like I said, exercise caution, remain balanced, because you got to remember why you do what you do. Now, a bootstrap round is pretty simple. First of all, you got to make sure that your needs are taken care of on a month-to-month basis, and you have enough money set aside for an emergency fund. Now, what that means is basically you want to put some money into your business, but you also want to have a buffer fund just for emergencies and things like that, in case your family needs it or in case you need it for medical expenses, everyday stuff, car accidents, things happen, insurance, all that good stuff. So the bootstrap thing, it's very simple. You go, you make your money however you make it, and you put it into the venture. You basically set up a new bank account for that company, and you funnel money into it in order to keep that balance separate from your own personal balance. And we'll get into when you need to set up a bank account and all that stuff, but essentially the big takeaway is once you start getting money from yourself or others, that's when you need to start a bank account, not before you've actually launched the business. So just keep those things in mind as you try to put together a bootstrap round. As always, when I say exercise caution, that means get input from your partner, from your wife or your husband, because really they're going to be the ones that are going to support you all the way through this journey. If you don't have their support, then it's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to be something where it's going to be nearly insurmountable, and it's going to just give everybody headaches. So do that, and I think you'll have a partly successful way. But as always, things happen, things come up, and that is essentially starting your own company and bootstrapping it. All right, so now let's talk about raising a friends and family round. How do you do it? Well, first thing you do is you have to set up a good PowerPoint or a good pitch, and you have to be able to have that elevator pitch right off the bat. You have to let your friends and family know exactly what it is your business, what the problem is your business is solving. Sometimes that's just as easy as like with Line Snake. What we're doing is we're solving the problem of fans that go to Comic Cons waiting in line and missing out on the con. Simple perspective. Now, if I wanted to go and do a friends and family round, that's exactly how I would explain it. But I'd also have a pitch deck, the same thing that I would use in a VC fund meeting or a general partner meeting. This is the same thing I would do, just so that they understand all the risk factors, they understand what your business does, and they have some key takeaways to go away from and then decide whether they want to put money into your venture or not. The one thing as kind of an asterisk next to this is that some people get real creative and they think, oh, well, I'm going to put together a convertible note document. I'm going to put together a safe document or any of these things. With friends and family, unless you're dealing with strong capital, I would try to keep those documents as clear and concise as possible. Because if you give a person legalese, they're instantly turned off from it. But if you have a clear contract that says, for this amount of money, I'm going to give you X amount of percent of my company, or if for this amount of money, if we raise more money, then your percentage will be this or whatnot. Like, you can let them know all those things without having to hand them a legal document from your attorney or one that you printed off LegalZoom. So just keep things very simple, very straightforward. If they're not investment savvy, they're going to be turned off by a lot of the stuff that you're trying to do when you say, well, I'm going to raise a down round, or this or that, or I'm doing a convertible note. Like, if you don't explain these things, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because later on they'll say, well, I didn't understand what I was investing in. I'm investing in you, and really I figured you knew what you were doing. And that's a hard thing to take. Because there is risk here. And I think that's the key to any friends and family round when you're trying to raise, is getting all the people in a room, explaining what the company does, what the problem they solve is, and then telling them, Just like you would if you were head of a big organization, the risk factors. Could someone come into the market and blow you away? Well, you have to explain those things. You cannot be afraid to tell them the risk factors, because eventually that's either going to sour or enrich your relationship. So that's about it for the friends and family round. But when you're thinking about these things and you have starting an app and you're thinking, well, I need to just raise capital. Some businesses don't actually need any capital. They actually have customers that are the working capital. Without those customers, those first few customers, they can't operate. So once they have a business going, then they can just sustain themselves and they don't need any outside capital. But it's always good to at least see if people are interested in investing too. So you can do it as just kind of a sport as well, just to find out if people are interested in investing in an idea like this. And if it's an offer you can't refuse or you can't turn down, and it makes sense for your business and you don't mind giving up a certain amount of equity and whatnot, well, take it. As simple as that. But you got to realize too that you're going to have partners in your business and they're going to have expectations just like you have expectations. So that's another thing that you want to keep on the watch for, because really, if you're starting a business with someone, you're accountable to them and they're accountable to you. And you guys are all accountable to the customer. So that's the end of the rant portion of this podcast. And now we'll get right into the code. Give all the background and ambiance noise. I'm at this really cool place called Voyager Craft Coffee here on Stevens Creek Boulevard in San Jose. And as you can tell, outside the cafe, there's lots of nice traffic whizzing around, but I'm going to try to speak at an audible tone so that you folks at home can hear me. So for this episode, what I wanted to do was actually revisit the design of our app. And so as you can see on screen, I'm in Sketch right now, and I have kind of a view of what's really happening with the current design. The things that I see, the things that I like about the design is, of course, it communicates everything going on. We have the person that's signing autographs, we have the location, we have how much of a percentage those signing spots are left and how much it's full, and then we have the ability to reserve one of those spots in line. So, and we also have the ability to search these events right at the top. One thing that I wanted to do is just talk, or at least explore from a design standpoint, if we can do better. One of the things that I see here is that it's kind of lacking something that gives it personality, or that communicates that there's an actual person signing, and this is a human interaction thing. So what I wanted to do was actually play around with some of the photos that I found of some of the artists. Like we have Art Adams here. This is Geoff Johns. He's a writer for Flash, or he's a producer for Flash. He's DC Comics chief creative officer now, but he used to be a great writer for Green Lantern, Flash, a number of other things. Mark Silvestri, if you don't know who he is, great artist, helped start Image Comics, true draftsman. Also, one of my all-time favorites, Rob Liefeld, the bad boy of comics. Love the guy, really awesome. Also Jim Lee, another founder of Image Comics, and all I'm doing to drum up some of these images here is I'm just going to Google Images and I'm just pulling a few of these down, because what I need to do is just get it in a mock-up and start really kind of playing with some of the artists' images, so that what I can do is just implant that right into my app. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, I just searched for Neil Adams, another comic book artist who's well-renowned and well-known. And as you can see, I've set Google Images here to where it does a couple things. One of the things you can do is you can go to Search Tools on Google Images. You can select what size of image you want, whether small or large. The other things you can do are a couple other things. I'm not going to get into those, but the sizes also, I can show the sizes directly on the image, so I don't have to guess by clicking on each image to see what size it is. And of course, these are large images, so I can see that right off the bat. So I'm going to get a nice, let's see, this is a nice image of Neil. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and
do a view image, and from here I can actually, you can see I can just zoom in and it gets the entire image. It's crazy. So we'll go ahead and save that image, and I'm going to go ahead and save that to a folder here on the desktop, and I'm going to put ls artist images, and that's going to be right here on the desktop. So we'll go ahead and save that one. I should have named it Neil Adams. Anyway, we'll just save image as. Actually, you know what? Better yet, let's do this. Let's select all, copy image, and then we can just go directly into here. Let's do this. We're going into Sketch, and we can take this whole deal here that we've created. We can take this screen here, this iPhone 6 screen, and we're going to go ahead and copy it, and we're going to go ahead and paste it. Okay, so it's pasted it right here at the end. This is going to be our canvas that we're going to jigger around and play around with. Let me go ahead and get rid of some of this stuff here that we don't need, just so that we can get rid of a bunch of things that are, you know, just kind of extra. These reserve buttons, you may have to rethink those, so let's just get rid of them now. We already have another copy of it, so you know we won't worry about that too much. But what we will do is we'll go back to Google Images, and let's get that Jim Lee image. Where was it? There we go. And we'll just copy image and then go back into Sketch. And since Jim Lee is the first one there, let's get rid of these other ones. And let's expand this out. Oh, I don't want to do that. We really just want the rectangle to expand out. Boom. And then let's just go ahead and paste that image there. Zoom out a little. And there we go. Actually, give that another try. Just zoom in. I'm selecting Shift as I scale this image down. Another way to do it is just going up here and using the scale proportions here. But we're just, for the sake of what we're trying to do, we're just trying to get this kind of in there so that we can play around with it. So one thing that I've done here is I've imported the image of Jim Lee, and let's just go edge to edge on it. And that is pretty nice. Let's go a little bit bigger. Let it fill up a lot of the space there, just so that we have a good look of Jim. And what we'll do is we'll just crop that down to what we need. So we'll select that image, and then what we'll do is we'll mask it so we know exactly what we want out of this image. So we'll just go ahead and go edge to edge, and I think we're good. So that's it. So now we have a pretty good looking picture of Jim Lee, and what we'll do here, just play around with this just a little bit more so that, you know, we can, something's happening here. Let me go back here, something happened. Okay, there we go. And the image of Jim Lee, we'll just expand that out a little, like we originally wanted to do. Make sure it's nice and neat here. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and mask it. Give him a little bit of headroom here. Boom. And actually, what happened? Didn't mask him. Alright, so let's take a look at that mask again. Make sure nice and neat. There we go. Alright, now I think we're in pretty good shape here. So now that we have our image as our background, that's just one of the things I wanted to try. Let's do a little something here. Let's make this, we have our text here. We're going to bring all this text to the front. So we're going to go to range, move to front. Boom. So now, obviously, now that we've changed everything up a little, we don't really need all this text to be in the same spot. So let's go ahead and play around with the placement of this just a little. It doesn't have the same pizzazz as it used to. So what we'll do is let's move everything up. Boom.
Sam. Yes. Remember? Yeah. Same name. I was gonna say Sam, but yeah.
And let's see. Boom. Boom. Move it all the way to the edge of the cell. Let's kind of firm this up. Oh, wrong thing to select. Rectangle. And we'll firm this up, give it a nice border. And of course we're going to need to make this text stand out. The biggest piece of text that we need to have stand out is this first piece of text, which is the headline, Jim Lee is signing. Let's give this also the date and time. Let's just make them all white for now. That way we can have our choice of what we want to do. And we'll make the color all white. You can play with that. Now, what if we have a white background or something that just, it doesn't agree with the background image? Well, let's put in a little bit of safety. One of the things that we can do is we can either enclose this in a square of some sort. Let's copy and paste this. And let's move it down. See, now we have duplicates here. So let's play with that just a little bit, that concept here. So one thing we can do here in this first group, so let's name this Gem 1, and then double click and we'll go Gem 2, is let's just play with this for a second. So we can enclose all this stuff in one nice neat little block, and just strip away a lot of the other stuff and get people to click here. Okay, so we can take this out. We can take out, well, maybe we can put this this percentage of spots filled somewhere else, but we're definitely going to need a date, right? That's essential because we need to know when this is happening. Okay, so maybe we can put this bit of information so they can see it at a glance. Maybe we can put this right here at the top. Okay, I think that's a pretty good little situation here. And it's 10 points, so I think it'll be fine. And we can do this. Maybe we can make this piece a little bit smaller, like 12 point. But we can make it stand out still. Let's try some bold colors like, yikes, this yellow is kind of gruesome. Or we can go with our traditional green. Let's leave it back green here. We'll leave this green because I want to try one more thing here. We're going to try to make this stand out just a tad. One of the things we're going to do is insert a shape. Insert a rectangle here. Just make that halfway through here. And the border, we don't need one, but the fill, let's go here. And we'll make it a nice gradient. And one thing I love about Sketch is that they make it really easy to move things around, get things situated in a way that you can see them. So we've kind of taken care of, we've killed two birds with one stone here, right? So we've got a chance to see two big things here. One is that there's a Jim Lee signing, and the second thing is that there's 30% full, 34 spots left, and we have a background gradient here that will actually help us to make that information stand out even more. One thing that I'm not opposed to putting down here is another gradient that will help. Let's copy and paste that. We'll make this top gradient, and we'll move this to the very top of the cell here. And if we tap here on the deal here, I believe there's a global gradients, and the gradient can, I forget the direction. Here we go. Maybe not the radius. No. Pardon me. There is a way to change the direction here. So the fill here. So one thing we can do is change the actual direction. And what we're going to do is one thing here. Where are you? Alright, let's bring it down here. Kill it. Yeah. Just delete it. Okay. Alright, so now we have this top gradient.
You're the one who made me send the picture. You made me send the video.
And there is a sharp, here we go. That's what I'm looking for. And we'll just switch this around. Make sure this gradient is taken really seriously. Don't want to mess around with these gradients. Anyway, I think you guys see where I'm trying to go here. Let's get rid of this thing because it's causing me more confusion than what's necessary. Let's get rid of that. I think I had a little glitch there. Let's copy and paste. And then for this one, we're going to, should be a way to change the gradient. Well, screw it, we'll Google it. So, gradient sketch. Yeah, screw it. Another option we can do. There we go. There we go. Okay. That's what I thought. So we just changed the direction of the gradient itself. Knew there was a magic little keystroke application that I could apply here. So what we can do is, as you see, we've kind of put the date here in the corner. And what we can do here is we can make this a little bit higher here so that we can get the full date in there. And then before you know it, we have a nice, simple, clear understanding of what's going on. You know, to play around with this just a little bit more, not to be annoying, but maybe we can do a couple things here. So first of all, on this small of a screen, we probably need to only go down to 15 or so. Let's see what we can get away with here. And then we'll bring this down to 10. Okay? Or, better yet, we can move this piece of text that shows the spots full. We'll bring that over here, because this is the part where they're going to actually take advantage of this. They're going to be looking in this side of the screen to say, oh, okay, 30% full, etc. And then what we'll do is we'll bring this piece of information that is actually quite important, which is the time etc. That's, or the not the time, the location where it's happening. We'll bring that here, but we don't want it to look just as important as the title. So we'll go ahead and bring that down maybe to 10 pixels, and we'll make it nice and bold too. Maybe it should be more of a gray. Let's see how gray we can go, or how maybe we can go a brighter color. What was the other color we're using? Like see, this actually isn't this isn't a bad look here. So give me 1 second. I'm going to answer this answer. So as you can see, in the moments while I was on the phone, I added one more bit of information because as things progress, especially with design and development, you're going to find that there's going to be things, if you don't plan it out the right way, like we're doing. We're not really planning it out the right way. It's just kind of, we're moving and we're getting ideas out there. What I'm doing is I'm realizing that they need to know the who, the what, the when, the where, and the how. All those different things they need to know in order to show up at this event. So I've added a little piece of information here, which is the city and state here. So one thing that I can do is actually not make this bold, but we can make it just nice and regular. We don't need to emphasize it in any way, but the place, it needs to be bold, and the headline, so to speak, needs to be bold too. So those are the things that need to be kind of standout pieces. One other thing that I've done is I moved this capacity metadata piece of information up to the top right. And I'm still on the fence about that. I'm not sure where there's a space for this. Maybe we can make it into a more of a graphic situation than or maybe we can just kind of figure out what information is essential here now that I look at this. So first of all, they don't need to know how much it is full. Maybe that could be a secondary piece of information once they tap on this piece. Maybe the first thing they need to know at a glance is that there's 34 spots left. Okay? Because no one really cares how much it is full, because what that'll do is actually get people to kind of procrastinate and wait. We want people to be able to make a decision right there on the spot. And we want them to be drawn into making a decision about this event going on. So let's just put that as our piece of information. And that actually shortens it up. So maybe we can just leave it right here at the top. But let's make it nice and small. That way, it stands out, but it's still not the only thing that stands out. So we'll make the whole thing bold. And this kind of makes me think, is it too much to have it here? Yeah, doesn't look quite right. Because this is essential data. Maybe we can gray this up, make it nice and gray, so that it stands out, but it's not super standouty like, okay. So it is important, but it's not as important as the who and the where and the when. So we'll make that kind of a secondary item here, and we'll just put 34 spots left right underneath here. So that way we have kind of these two corners being used here. And what we want people to do is just tap on this cell in order to book themselves or reserve a spot in that line. And so this kind of gives us a little bit of stickiness with our app too, because now we can get people to say, hey, you know what, I really want to check out that Jim Lee thing. And what the other design enabled people to do was just to go down the list and just tap, tap, tap and go crazy, but without really thinking about the events that they're really subscribing to. But what this allows us to do is put a secondary view here that allows people to see exactly what event they're going to. So I actually like the look and the feel of this thing. We have a little gradient here, we have a gradient at the top, and then we have some information laid on that. So we'll go ahead and get rid of Jim 2, And we'll move Gym 1 to our priority here. So we'll move that right up here at the, oh, one piece of information's not there. Let's see. Leave that there. And where are you? Okay. So we'll put that here. We'll move all of Gym 1 up. And we'll use this as kind of a rough template for the things going on here. So we'll copy this, nice paste, and we'll move that down. And we'll get a wall effect here. Maybe we'll have a nice little divider in there, just for the sake of having it in there. Yeah. So now let's switch up let's make this Geoff Johns. And one thing that is interesting about the Geoff Johns one is, where are you? Where are you, Geoff Johns? There we go. So the Geoff Johns one, he has a white background here. So we'll go ahead and replace the image for Jim Lee. Well, we want it to be here. So one thing that's annoying about Sketch's way of dealing with copy and paste is, if you're not in the right area, then you can really do a lot of disastrous things. So let's see, scale it down once again. Right piece of information, right shape. We'll zoom in here just so that we can manipulate all this good stuff, and put this above the Jim Lee one, kill the Jim Lee one. It's actually, oddly enough, come on, there we go. Oh. There we go. So it doesn't look so great when we see the bitmap being adapted for this layout, and it has a crisp white background. So these are lessons learned, things that really should be part of the deal. One thing I see here is that the gradient is just much too sharp. We have this gradient here, works well, however it's just way too sharp. So maybe we need to tone down that gradient, just lower the opacity, or blend it actually. So we need to maybe multiply it, give it a nice interesting. So what we could do is for our text, let's make sure that these pieces of the text are actually on top of what we want to happen here. Yep. Good. And where is our text here for Jim Lee signing? Okay, very strange. So we have that, and now let's look for our, somehow, some way, got rid of our Jim Lee text here. That's okay. Make it nice and neat here, and bring it down. Yep. And We'll change it to Geoff Johns. Just make it a autograph session since he's a writer. And you know, still not 100% satisfied with the stretch of this gradient. So what we can do is we can indeed make this gradient a little bit richer down here, but the white here, we can always shuttle this down, make it a smooth opacity, and at the same time we can lower that opacity just a little, because we want it just visible enough to where, okay, if there is a white background, which, you know, 90% of the photos are not going to be a white background, so we don't have to worry too much. We just want to make it presentable enough to where, okay, it's not going to look jarring to the naked eye. We just want it to be just a little bit off, you know, just a tad. So let's modify this just a little. Yep, smooth opacity. Yeah, so for the most part, I think we're in a good spot. So we'll leave that for what it is. And what we could do, could make that, no, I was thinking something else. I'm always trying to think in Photoshop terms, but you know, sometimes we gotta just leave it, let it lay. Maybe we can create this gradient in code later on, but we're not going to worry about it too much, because so now we have an example of a light and a dark background, and it is visible. You know, people can see it. We can see that even for this, I believe we should just put just a little shadow, just so that it stands out, and we'll make that shadow 1 pixel. There we go, and it's just enough to stand out. Just make it nice and neat. And one little thing you can do here is you can copy the style for this, just like in Photoshop, and then paste the style here, and then you have some duplicates here. So, you know, just keep that in mind. The other thing I want to do is copy the style here, and then paste the style here. Yeah, there we go. So now we have essentially, get these more bookended here. Paste style, perfect. So it actually looks a lot better, because what you have is you have a dark background here, and you have a light background, and for the most part you can see all of these things happening, and people, when they enter in an event, they can mix and match the photos they want to use. And we can even recommend, hey, if you're going to do a signing, get a dark background one, because it's going to look better and people will be able to see everything going on for your event in one glance. So these are all little things that we can figure out. One thing I want to do is just work on some of these other things really quickly. I want to get the position to be 15. Okay, just so that it's not bleeding edge, it's just right there where we need it to be. So you see, looks nice, doesn't it? Much more orderly, much more just cleaner. So we'll knock that 15 from the edge, and looks just a lot better. So we'll leave it as that, and that's essentially it. So I think we have a good enough redesign. We've added some real human elements to this thing to make it stand out and pop when we're talking about building our line snake app. So in the next video, we'll actually put this into practice, and we'll start coding up the interface for this. So once again, I'm Curtis Pope. Tell a friend, tell them about what you're learning, tell them about all the good things that we're doing here on Watch Curtis Code. And as always, the links to these things will be right here in the show notes. and you guys can go and play around with these things, the sketch files and the other assets that we're using on the show. Once the show is complete, you'll see it right here in the show notes. So I'm Curtis Pope, and thank you once again for watching Watch Curtis Code.